Over the last few years, each new version of iOS from Apple has just felt boring and repetitive. Yet this year it seems that Apple finally cooked something good, and ignoring a lot of the AI bullshit, iOS 18 is actually a really meaningful update to iOS. So let's dive in. First up, I'm going to be covering iOS before iPadOS, and there won't be any macOS coverage in this video. The reason for iOS before iPadOS is iPadOS got nothing. I really want to yap about that, but there will be yaps about that soon, and there's no macOS in this video, because I just don't use macOS enough, realistically, for most of my everyday work to talk about it. I do use macOS, but nowhere near enough to actually talk about it, and I don't really think there's anything in macOS that is life-altering which I need to cover in this video. So first up, iOS 18 was probably one of, if not the biggest updates we've had to the iPhone since iOS 7. We finally got the ability to move apps wherever we want on the screen, which is great! Except, you know, ignoring the fact Android have had that since the first ever Android phone in 2007, which was like almost 18 years ago. Thanks, Apple. Took you guys long enough, 18 years just to move an app wherever I want. Really innovative features. Anyways, it's a nice update. I could complain, but this is a nice update, in theory. But realistically, given the constraints you still have on your iPhone, it still doesn't really feel that useful. I mean, on Android, if I wanted to, I could like a 20 by 20 grid. On iOS, I'm still limited to that 4x6 grid, 4 apps per row. I can't even put 5 apps per row. It doesn't make sense. The apps take up too much space. Please use the space better on your phones. I mean, the screen on my Z Fold over here, which has a more narrow screen, I can fit like 6 apps on the row here in a more narrow screen and still easily tap around to find the apps I need, compared to the 4 apps on the iPhone, which just feel barbaric, honestly. Anyways, speaking of app icons now also have a dark mode option. This is quite cool, actually. So when your phone's in dark mode, or you can even make it when your phone's not in dark mode, it's up to you, honestly. You can choose what you want. Your app icons will basically go into a darker mode. Right now, this is only on Apple apps. This is a cool idea. I did try and find on Apple's website if this is like mandatory for all developers to have this. It seems that as of now in Beta 3, a lot of apps and widgets now support tinting / dark mode straight from Apple without developer adding an update. I still don't think this looks good with tinting, but the dark mode does actually look quite good on most apps, even if the developer themselves haven't updated it. I guess we'll have to see in the future. This is the thing, developers are able to be like, hey, I want my dark mode icon to like this, or if they don't do that, then Apple will just be like, okay, we're just going to use some fancy algorithm or whatever to determine this is what we're going to do in your app. I couldn't find anything at all. But I'm not too sure how brands like Facebook, Twitter, or X, if you want to call it that, it's different. Anyways, I think how these brands will react, because a lot of these brands have very strict guiding policies and like policies to do with how their icon looks. So I'm not sure if these brands will be happy to do that. But if they're not happy to do that, there's also tinting icons now, and this looks awful. You guys remember, like in 2012, where people would make fun of Android, specifically more TouchWiz, because how ugly and awful it looked. That's how this looks. It basically allows you to tint icons or apps or widgets, whatever you want to call it, all of those different options to kind of match a more kind of gradient, but you want like a color, and it just looks awful. Even the apps, so apps are supposed to be able to update to support which bits and widgets too, which bits you want to tint, but even the Apple apps and widgets which are updated to support this look awful. I mean, look at Apple's marketing material. Does this really look like something Apple would do? No, it just feels like nonsense. I mean, come on. Apple, I don't agree with everything Apple does, but normally Apple are a very design-forward company. I mean, heck, they made their computers ship for like 6 years, just for the form of design and thinness. Yet, for that company, which normally puts design over function, they added a feature which doesn't have any function and doesn't have any design. Apps can now require Face ID to open. This is actually quite cool. So let's say you don't want, I don't know, Timmy be able to view your messages, you can lock your messages app, which is nice. But let's say you've got a very suspicious app on your phone. I'm not going to name any names, but let's just say you've got an app which you don't want anyone else knowing you have on your phone. What you could do is you can hide this app in the app library, which means no one will be able to open it. You won't even get notifications from the app unless you unlock it with your face. No one will even know it's there unless they're able to unlock the app library bit to even see you have this app installed. This is quite cool. And you know what? It's honestly quite ironic. The year the iPad finally gets a calculator is the year that you're able to delete calculator apps from your iPhone. Control Center finally got an update this year since, well, iOS 11 back in 2017. And it's honestly quite a good update. It makes Control Center feel fun. again. You can resize controls, you can add your own controls. There's so much you can do now, which you just couldn't do before. It feels like Apple are trying to make the OS fun again, in a sense. And this year we're finally getting updates, and yes, I know it's taken Apple forever to add these basic features we're getting this year, but it's things people have wanted for years that Apple are finally adding. So anyways, I'm a bit confused though on the control center, because there's this widget over here, like the connectivity one, and for some bizarre reason Apple are now deeming, because before it was mobile hotspot in there, but Apple are now deeming AirDrop is more important than mobile hotspot. Sorry, not mobile hotspot, mobile data even. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, is it really more important? I mean, there could be someone out there who really thinks AirDrop is more important than toggling on and off their mobile data. If there is, sure, let them have it, but make it a setting. You just did a whole thing where we can customize the whole control center. Why not let us customize what's inside this little connectivity box thingy? Please let us do that. But anyway, speaking of control center, they also brought back one of the best features from iOS 10 control center, and that is the separate pages with separate functions. When you first load up control center now, once you update, we have like the main page, the favorite page, the featured page, whatever you want to call it. It basically is everything you had there before, but you can obviously resize and all of that, like I said. So you swipe down, and then on this other page, you can add even more control center icons. And also the great thing is, developers will be able to make their own control center, like toggle buttons, thingamajiggies now. So you'll be able to put those on the first page, the second page, or realistically, yeah, wherever you want, technically, so you can. I think you can create quite a few pages. I don't know how many you can create. I'm talking about the default pages. Anyways, you swipe down again, there's a music page. You can control what's currently playing on your phone or whatever. But if you have HomePods or like certain TVs which Apple allow in their HomeKit network on your network, on your Wi-Fi, and your LAN, whatever you want to call it, then you'll be able to control it from there too. But after that, there's also a home page. This allows you to do HomeKit stuff, but the HomeKit stuff in Control Center has sucked since iOS 10. iOS 10 was the superior Control Center. iOS 10, the HomeKit stuff in Control Center was your favorites, or you chose what was there. And when they changed the Control Center and added more HomeKit stuff, I think it was in iOS 14, Apple just randomly chose what they wanted there. And you still can't choose what's in there. I cannot choose what's in my control center to do with my HomeKit. The other day, I was out. I wanted to turn on the aircon when I was home, because the UK is currently dying in a heat wave. And I wanted to do that when I was out. I went into Control Center, and Control Center recommended to me that I turn on my TV. When my phone knew I wasn't at home. My phone's not stupid. They know you're not at home. But even when I'm not at home, you're still recommending to me, hey, why didn't you turn on your TV? I'm sure you'd love to watch TV right now. I don't want to watch TV. I want to turn on my fucking aircon. Then on the last page was like a little connection page that allows you to do, you know, like cellular data, Wi-Fi, airplane, all the other like connection stuff. I think it's actually really nice that Apple allowing us to customize things more. But please, they are still locking things down. When you have spent over £1,000 on a device, stop locking things down for the user. It's not that hard not to lock things down for the user. Please, let me control my own device I have purchased. Anyways, off that side rant. Another rant now. The Photos app got a massive redesign. I mean, for the last 2 years, the Photos app has been getting redesigned like year over year, like small features. This year was a big one. And I hate it. With a passion. It is fucking awful. I mean, you load up the app, you have all your photos and a nice little grid. You want to find your albums, or you want to find your recently deleted, your hidden, your people. You have to scroll. You have to scroll down. There is no tabs at the bottom, and it messes with my brain, and I fucking hate it. Bring back the good Photos app. Please, it is not that hard. Why do you have to ruin a good app just because you want to say you did an update when your update just fucks up the operating system? I don't like it, if you couldn't tell. Please, Apple, I beg of you. Please stop fucking over your good UI experiences with UI experiences that are fucking trash and awful. I've used it for over a month now, and I cannot adjust to it no matter what I do, and I frankly don't believe that many other people who like the old design are going to be able to adjust to this new fucking god-awful design. I mean, it's like, you remember a few years ago, I think it was iPadOS 15 or 14, when we had the Safari tab redesign, and everyone hated it because it made Safari, yeah, look nicer, but Safari was useless. And eventually, after a lot of backlash, they brought back in the beta an option to change it, and that stayed in iOS up to now. And just bring that back in the new one. Just let us pick between the old photos and the new photos, because I bet most people would pick the old photos. You know what are you thinking, Apple? You do this so often, you have to fuck up a good experience you have because you want to make it look nicer and look better, even though it fucks up the operating system and it just makes it harder to use. Please stop being like, is it so hard just to listen to what your users actually want instead of doing things your users don't want? But, you know what? I will have to give Apple credit. They did listen to users. They did add something users want. They added RCS to messages. Well, they didn't so add it, more like they were forced to, because they got in trouble with the EU, and then the Department of Justice in America also suing them. It's almost like they didn't want to do that because they have a bunch of anti-competitive bullshit behaviour, and they don't want you to be able to talk with someone with an Android if you have an iPhone, unless you have to install a third-party app, because it's almost like they want everyone's money. Yay, we love anti-competitive behaviour. But RCS is on iPhone, and we are so back, is what I would say, if RCS worked anywhere but not in America. It seems as if they've also changed this in Beta 3 now. It's not only just in America, it's also coming to other countries. The carrier also needs to add support to it. Sadly, I still don't have access to it in the UK. And the bubbles are also still green of RCS because they obviously want you to be a social outcast. I mean, realistically, I don't give a shit. You have green bubbles, you have blue. I don't give a shit. But some people generally do. Americans apparently do. So, yeah. And an iMessage though, only an iMessage by the way. Don't think you're getting this in RCS, even though I'm pretty sure RCS could support this. You can do bold text now, you can do underline, you can do italics, you can do strike through. Something every messaging app has had for years, except iMessage. How is iMessage a stand? I don't actually understand how iMessage is a standard in America. It is shit compared to other platforms. I mean, all messaging platforms are shit, honestly, let's be honest. Anyways, if someone's on an old version of iOS, they won't see all the bold, underline, they won't see any of that. Anyways, you can also now tap back messages with emojis, so before you could only tap back with basic things like a thumbs up, or a heart, or a thumbs up again, or I'm trying to remember, exclamation mark, or a question mark, or a haha. But now you can actually tap back with emojis, which is cool, I guess. I mean, thanks for adding something every other messaging app has had for 5 years, Apple. Nice one. You can also schedule text. This is actually cool. But it would be cool if there wasn't more Apple limitations in it. Yeah, we love corporate greed and anti-competitive behavior. Woo. So some of the first limitations are basically, it looks like you can only send messages 2 weeks in advance. That's not the big deal. The big deal to me is you can only schedule iMessage, no SMS, and I would try with RCS, but I can't. And knowing Apple anyways, you probably won't be able to schedule RCS because they love anti-competitive bullshit behavior. Thanks, Apple. Oh yeah, and your device also needs to be on for the iMessage scheduled message to send, which kind of makes sense, I guess. I mean, you could say then, oh, it's not leaving your local device, it's not going to the cloud, we're not spying on you. Thanks, Apple, you did something good. Apparently, maybe, possibly. Although they actually did do something good. You can iMessage or SMS of a satellite collection on the iPhone 14 or newer. Originally, when the 14 came out, this was supposed to be an emergency feature only, and I think you had to pay for it, but now it seems anyone can do it if you have a 14 or newer and have a satellite connection. I don't have any cellular, bars or Wi-Fi, anything. It seems to be able to iMessage or SMS. Once again, nothing about RCS because we didn't mention it, and I can't try it out because I don't have a 14 or newer, first of all, and second, I can't even RCS in the first place. So many of these iMessage problems could be avoided if Apple just brought iMessage to other platforms and stopped being a stubborn piece of shit, honestly. By the way, you can do that, don't tell anyone, but Blue Bubbles, run a little server on your Mac and access, open it up to your internet, run it on some sort of domain or whatever. They can access it anywhere in the world, like I can over here. Which would suck if Apple found out about that. Would suck if you don't need to buy an iPhone to access iMessage. The Mail app also got a huge redesign, which I haven't actually been able to see in the Mail app because it's just not there yet. Thanks, Apple. Anyways, from what I've seen from what Apple is saying, in the Mail app you'll be able to see primary, things will be set up in sections now. So you have primary, transaction, updates, and promotions. Seems nice, like what Gmail have done for years and other Mail apps. Senders will have a profile picture next to them, once again, what all other Mail apps have done for years. There's another feature Apple talked about, but I don't know what the fuck they're on about. It doesn't make sense, but sure, they basically said be able to group senders or businesses into emails, and then in Mail will tell you what's important. I don't understand what the fuck they mean by this, or how this is even supposed to work, but according to them, this is a very revolutionary feature, and something no one else has, and something that's so revolutionary, they don't even Anyways, Safari got actually some useful updates. Shocker, I'm aware. But Safari can now detect important information on the page pointed out to you. No idea how it decides what's important, it's probably AI. AI, the big buzzword at the minute, hopefully actually does show it, because I haven't seen it myself yet. I haven't seen half of these features myself yet. I've just heard Apple talk about these and said they were part of it, even though I'm not seeing any of them. Anyways, Safari can now generate a table of contents for an article. That is quite cool. Safari can remember things you've highlighted, that is also quite cool. And Safari can read out articles to you, this is also quite cool. Thank you, Apple, for adding useful features. And speaking of, they also added another super useful feature, which I don't see anyone ever complain about iPhone except a few people, but it's one of the best features of Android. They added T9 dialing. Finally! It has taken them, like, once again, 18 years, and I'm so thankful because it's one of the best features of Android, and people who don't use it are honestly cavemen, because why aren't using the superior form to dial people quicker? Anyways, it's time for the iPad! Woo, the device that got nothing! That's right, your iPad. The iPad has the M4 chip that no MacBook even has right now, can still not even open a terminal, something a Mac from over 20 years ago, more than over 20 years. I mean, realistically, a Mac from like the 1970s could probably open a terminal. Okay, not 1970s. Wasn't it 1984? That was it, the Macintosh Lisa. The Macintosh Lisa, I'm 99% sure could open a terminal, but your M4 chip iPad, over 50 times more powerful probably more than 50 times more powerful, can't even open a fucking terminal. Something you've been able to do on computers since the dawn of the Unix operating system in 1969. You spend £1,000 on an iPad? Good for you. You want to do anything that's considered pro, but it's not drawing, anything like that. You want to do other professional type of work? Get yourself a MacBook, spend another £1,000. Why are you like this, Apple? Is it so hard to let the concept of someone has bought your device, they want to do what they want on the device they have bought, let them run a fucking terminal, and you're telling me you could buy an M4 iPad Pro with 16GB of RAM, the iPad not plugged into any external screen, is only allowed to open up 4 things at once of Stage Manager, but my M1 MacBook Pro with 8GB of RAM can open up as much as I want until it crashes. Why are your computers fucking like... I mean, it doesn't make sense. How do you build your computers like this? You know what? Sorry. I am actually over-exaggerating. The iPad did get some features. It's got everything the iPhone got. That's cool, I guess. And on top of that, don't you forget, you got a tab bar. Yeah, Apple spent like 5-10 minutes going on about it in the keynote. I've seen it about 4 times now because it's the most useless feature they've ever added. Oh, I'll give them credit. They added a calculator. 14 years. They added a calculator. It's actually quite cool. Math Notes is actually quite a cool feature. You can draw on the calculator or on Apple Notes, whatever. And let's say you have the variable, I don't know, x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 1. You do x plus y. And to the equals, it will automatically put the 6 there because, well, 5 plus 1 is 6. But let's say you change y is equal to 2, it will then automatically change where it says equals to 7 because 5 plus 2 is 7. That's actually a cool feature, I can't lie. Well done, Apple. You added a useful feature. But you're telling me, on the iPads, but as powerful as they are, that's the best feature you could add this year. You couldn't even have the audacity to allow me to open more apps in Stage Manager, let alone a fucking terminal, a basic computer. And I want to give the iPad a chance, but it is impossible when I can't get any real fucking work done on it, because Apple love to limit everything you can do on there. Now to the big thing, AI, or should I say Apple Intelligence. Now normally, I would probably knock that, but I can't lie, in this situation, they kind of cooked. Like, that's actually kind of like a clever marketing thing. Let's talk about AI. Because most of the time when you see AI, it is normally something done because the board of directors wanted it because they money and everyone else is doing it. So, yeah, let's do AI. Oh, I can't lie. Apple did some, not everything. No, we'll talk about the image generation in a minute. But almost everything was actually quite good. So let's get on with it. So, first up, you need an M1 chip or newer, or you need an iPhone 15 Pro or newer to be able to use any of Apple's intelligence. That basically writes off over 50% of people who are probably on iOS 18, iPadOS 18, or macOS. Oh fuck, what is it? macOS, whatever it's called. I forgot the name because I really don't care that much. I can't lie. Anyways, but from what I've seen so far online, it actually seems cool. I can't try it out myself. Even I do have an M1 MacBook Pro because I live in the UK, not America. But it looks cool from what I've seen online. Anyways, you'll be able to do things such as say, "Hey Siri." Oh, no. I was scared Siri was going to activate. After my meeting today, will I have enough time to make it to Stephen's dinner given the current traffic? And it should be able to, use AI, use your calendar, use what it knows about you to be like, oh yeah, you can make that if you leave at this exact time. Or say, nah, sorry mate, you're going to have to leave the meeting 20 minutes earlier to get there in time. It's cool. Now, will it actually be able to do that? I have zero idea. And given the overpromises Apple have done in the past of Siri, fuck knows if it will actually hold up to what they have promised. But if it can, then it's cool. It'll basically be able to use context awareness on your screen too to do other things. So let's say you're looking at, I don't know, some sort of flight itinerary, and you can say, hey, given my current schedule, what time I have to leave my house to make it to this flight or whatever on time. It's cool things like that. That is cool. And what it does is it processes everything on device, and if it can't be processed with like the Apple AI on device, what will happen is it will then go to like ChatGPT. But so this is cool too. So Apple aren't paying OpenAI, nor do you have to pay OpenAI. You get GPT-4 for free with your Siri, basically, but if you have the correct iPhone version or the correct Mac version and you're in America. But if you do, you get that. And if you're also paying for ChatGPT, you can, I don't know if you have to log in or give an API key or whatever, but you'll be able to access your paid, like some more paid features too, which is quite sweet. None of your data is going to OpenAI too, because what Apple does is when a request isn't on your device, it goes to like a secure server running Apple Silicon, where it does some like authentication magic to make sure it's you, make sure no one's tampering, make sure no one's stealing data, trying to understand your request or anything. And it's like, hey, it's Bob. Bob is making a request. Like, let me send that information back to Bob. I mean, I don't understand exactly how it works, but apparently it should actually give you privacy. So that is cool. Anyways, let's just hope Apple don't leave some hard-coded API keys in their code. Because you guys remember what happened to the last big AI, the Rabbit R1? The one where people were able to look through requests, send company emails, and look through spreadsheets, do everything. Basically mess with the whole company, look at anything going on in the company, because they left a couple hard-coded API keys. Just like so many AI companies are a fucking scam, just like the NFT and crypto phase. Anyways, let's move on to the bullshit. The image generation. Why? Why did he feel the need to make fucking image generation? I don't care what you say. Image generation always looks like crap compared to actual artists, and you've just taken away from actual artists and giving studios, an example, more of a reason to not pay their artists fair wages because they use some fucking AI bullshit to save money. Please stop this AI image generation bullshit. It never looks good, and frankly, it just takes away from real artists. It just feels like actual slop and useless content. Please, just stop doing it. It seems as if a lot of the promised features of this Apple Intelligence, especially the ones to do with Siri, aren't going to be released until spring of 2025. Almost a year after Apple promised they would be out. Kind of crazy if you ask me. And Apple also did this thing which a lot of people think is controversial. I think it's controversial too. I mean, I don't mind, but let me get into it. They basically made a bot to web scrape the entire web to train the AI. I would have given Apple permission to scrape my website. I don't have anything on now. I care too much about Apple. I'm like, no, Apple, don't go on my website. But the fact of the matter is, it's a bit scummy that after they've already done that, after they announced it, then they're like, oh yeah, just add us to your robots.txt if you don't want us to scrape your website in the future. I mean, you could have said that beforehand, but no, given your whole thing where you have to create hype and you can't announce your things beforehand, you couldn't have just waited to get the user's consent. And yes, I know if you put things on the internet, you could say it's under public domain, under free domain, whatever you want to call it. It still pisses me off, okay? It still frustrates me that they only come out of the robots.txt thing after they've announced it, and then off like, oh, it's up to you, you do what you want. It pisses me off, okay? And yes, I know in this video I've been extremely hypocritical towards Apple and a lot of things, but I am genuinely excited, and I feel like when you like a company, I mean, I like Apple, I like what they do. When you like a company, you can't just dick ride them forever. If you just dick ride the $1 trillion company, they're never going to improve. They don't give a shit. If you just dick ride the company, you're just doing free marketing for them. There is no need to dick ride the company. Like, literally, if you think the company's doing something wrong, call them out for it. The company doesn't give a shit. If you, as the consumer, says, oh yeah, I mean, I love Apple. I love when Apple take advantage of underage workers and know about it. They don't give a shit. There's no need to defend Apple in that situation. If Apple are using underage workers, which they did in 2019, and they could possibly be using now, there is no need for you to say, I don't give a shit. Like, it's really not that hard to call out the company. The company aren't going to give a shit, and if you call them out, enough people call them out, they might actually do something. Don't dick ride into oblivion, actually look into the company. Don't just blindly support the company. Please actually do your research. And you can like the products, doesn't mean you have to blindly support every single decision the company makes. I like Apple. I don't blindly support every single decision they make, as frankly they make some god-awful decisions. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and enjoyed my retrospective on iOS and iPadOS 18, and I will see you all later.